By the end of this video, you will have a full stack application, simple but effective, using different technologies. We will use Next.js, Tailwind CSS and TypeScript on the front end. On the back end, we will use Rust without a specific framework, but using Serde to do some serialization, to serialize the objects. And we will use as a database Postgres. All the three services will be, of course, Dockerized, and we'll connect them using Docker Compose. So basically, with one command, you can spin all the three services. And this is a very interesting stack. I hope you can learn a lot by the end of this video. All the code will be available on GitHub, so no worries. And I think that we can start. I want to start with the prerequisites. So what do you need to have and to know to follow along with me? So you need a basic knowledge of what is a front end, a basic knowledge of what is a backend, and what is a database and what is an API. So it's a beginner level video, but you need to understand this concept, otherwise you might get lost. Then you need Docker installed and up and running on your machine, and Rust installed on your machine. Especially, you don't really need Rust as a compiler, but you need Cargo. Cargo is the package manager of Rust, very similar to npm or for JavaScript or pip for Python. So you can think like the tool that you use to download packages, which are called crates in Rust. So let's start with the project. So let's start coding, and you can choose any directory you want, and you can create a directory. I already created this one, but you can create and then step inside this directory. Once you are inside this directory, you can open it with any IDE you want. For example, VS Code, so you can use code space dot. And you should have this empty VS Code interface. Now, the first thing that I want to do is to initialize a Git repository. We will use versioning in this project, and we will also push this whole project on GitHub. By the end of this video, it will be available in the description. So we can type git init. It says initialized empty Git repository, and then we can create a file called .gitignore. Usually I use the command touch, but you can also just press the plus button at the here, I would say. Can you see the cursor? Okay. So touch gitignore. So we have this .gitignore file here. Inside here, we're not going to the details, but one day I'll create a what a gitignore video. And we also need another file, which is compose.yaml. Touch compose.yaml. This is the default name of a Docker Compose file. You can also have docker-compose.yml. I think this is even faster to type, so it's for laziness reasons that I'm using this. Now, let's start and let's create this project bottom up. I'll take a 1 minute break now, so just to check the chat last time, and then we can start typing. Okay. Yes, sir. There are different Rust frameworks. I think one is Rocket, but I wanted to do I want to try without frameworks. Okay. Let's see. Moment. Okay. Cool. If you share the video and you tag me, at the end I'll retweet with my own account, Twitter or LinkedIn. Promise. Pinky swear. Let's start. Let's create the database. So here we can define services. like this. And let's start with a service called DB, which stands, of course, for database. And we can have some key value pairs. So first of all, I want to define a container name. This is how, otherwise we'll have a random assigned name for the container. As an image, we use Postgres 13. And then we need some environment variables. This is to define the username, password, and DB name. In this case, I'll do something that you should never do in production, which is to use Postgres both for user, password, and DB. Never do this in a production environment, please. After environments, I need to define the ports here. 5432 is the default for Postgres, and then volumes. Volumes are needed to have persistency in the using the containers, that otherwise everything that is in a container will be deleted and destroyed at the end when the container is stopped or removed. Okay, so this was easy. Now let's start the database. So if we do docker compose app-d, we should just run the container. For me, it has been very fast because I already have the Postgres image on my machine. Otherwise, first it downloads it from Docker Hub. So when I run any container, the first thing that I do is this command, docker ps-a, just to see if it's up and running. So this is the first thing that I do, okay? So the ports, they look okay. And it seems also that we have port exposed on the outside. To check if this, to check if everything is okay, I can do this command, docker exec-t db psql-u postgres. I made a video about docker exec this week, check it out. And then we are inside the container. And this is a psql command. If we do \l, we see there is something, there are some databases. Important, remember what I'm doing now. If I do \dt, did not find any relations because we have the database, but we don't have any table, any relations. We just created the. It's like that we basically installed the database and we double-clicked on the icon. So we can exit this container. To exit. Like this. And now we need to actually create the backend. How can we create the backend? Let's create the backend, and we, of course, we will start with the Rust part. Okay, so I am at the root level. So my case is full stack -rust-live. Your directory might be a bit different. We do something very similar to what we do with Node.js. I'll do something very similar of what you do with npm. So instead of doing npm init, I do cargo new. This is the command. Cargo new backend. Of course, you need the cargo CLI. You need to install Rust and the cargo CLI. Cargo new backend. And Rust is super fast. It created a project in milliseconds. Okay, it's mind-blowing. So you can see here at the top, we have now some files inside this very minimalistic Rust project. I love the structure of the Rust projects. Huge, huge fun. So if we want to define some dependencies, we can do this in different ways, but I'll just write them in this cargo.toml file, which is very similar to a package.json or requirements.txt in Python. So a file that has all the dependencies, basically. We have 4 dependencies: Postgres, Serde, Serde_JSON, Serde_derive. Postgres is to make the connection with this specific DB. Serde is to serialize and deserialize these objects, because we will work with JSON objects, but Rust doesn't have the JSON format natively, as a Node might have. It needs an additional package. So Serde, which is the generic deserialization and serialization. Serde_JSON, the specific for JSON. You can also serialize in other formats. And Serde is basically to create a sort of macro. It's called is to basically write a bit less code and have this automatically in the page. Nice. This Rust project will be about 200 lines of code, but no worries, I'll explain line by line everything that will happen here. Probably not write every line, but I will explain everything, and let's start. Now, let's start to write the actual backend. We will use a single file. You see this backend src main.rs file. When you have a hello world, let's delete it, and let's start writing some Rust code. I'm super excited because I haven't coded live with Rust for a while, I would say. So first thing is to put the dependencies. We have Postgres, the error of Postgres here. Then we have this TCP listener and TCP stream to create this TCP server. Read and write, because we want to get we want to read and write from this TCP stream. This is basically how also web servers they work. And we also have this env, which is to handle environment variables. I'm gonna check the chat 1 second. Even if then after I have to type it. Nice. Cool. Nice. Okay. Okay, so after these dependencies, what we want to do is to add also this macro. So basically, we have this Serde derive, so we can use it. We'll use it basically soon, like in in 3 seconds. So we need to define a model. Usually, I create a model called user with a name and an email. So we'll have 3 fields. One is, I'll copy here. So we'll have this struct, we'll create our structure for the user. We see ID option, name string, email string. Why do you have this option? Because I want to use this model, but when I create a new user, I don't want to define the ID. I want to just say, create this user with the name Francesco and email Francesco mail. And then they assign, okay, you are number 10. This is why this is optional. But this, of course, it will be very important. This will be, of course, the primary key of the database. Now, below this model, we can define some constants. First of all, we need this. We need this DB URL to basically define the database URL environment variable. This will be needed to connect to Postgres. Let me just put it like here so it's better. And now some constants. So since sadly we don't use any framework, we need basically to do everything by hand. And one of the problems that we might have is the well-famous problem of cores. So you can't by default access different machines on different IPs. So the code will be available below, no worries. We have basically in the response, we want to add some headers. You don't have to understand exactly here what happens, but I just want to read it fast. So we have content type application JSON because we want a JSON format. Basically, we are allowing everyone to access this service. Of course, in production, you don't do this. And we allow these methods. You see, get, post, put, and delete. We will use this for HTTP verbs. And also we can use this content type because it's a header that will need to specify the type of the on the request and the response. Then we need another constant that will be in the response in case we don't find anything. So we had this 404 not found. And below I want to return another error. So in case when we have an error, we are basically here adding the status of the HTTP response. So in case of not found, we'll have a 404 in the response. In case we have an error, we have a status of 500. I don't want to return an error with a status of 200. I don't like it, even in an example. Okay, so one moment. Let me see. One moment. Okay. Nice. I hope you're enjoying it. I promise that I'll read all the chat. After we finish to type the backend, I'll check the chat. No worries. That's on how I need to focus. One moment. Okay. So now we need to write this server. We did nothing. We just added this constant in database. So it's important to create a main function like this. It's the main function that we had even before deleting this one. So here we want to do basically just two things. One is to set the database. We will create this function soon. Fn main. I want to remove this. So this is the function. So we want to set the database. I'll explain soon what this does mean. We are basically calling this function, and if we have any error, we will give an error, of course. And we want also to start the server. How can we do this manually with Rust? We will just use this. Let me copy and, of course, explain. So we have a listener of TCP requests, and we bind this to a specific port. You see, in this case, I'm hard coding the 8080. You can even use an environment variable, but I want to be as simple as possible in this example, because I'm sure that I'll use this 8080 port. And then you see for stream in listener incoming. So when there are these incoming requests, it put this inside a stream, and we handle all these requests. Otherwise, we'll say unable to connect. So this is how the web server in Rust works. Of course, this is a very minimal example, but it's complete. Now, below this main function, we will have three additional utility functions. I'll show you them one by one. So the first one is this one, is DB setup. Check it out. If you know SQL commands, you know what is going to happen here. We have this function, and we connect to the client. The client is the client to connect to the database. We connect without secure, with no TLS. We do this, a client batch execute. We can do SQL commands right here. Of course, this is an approach. Some people love this approach. Some people hate this approach. This is a very low level approach. We create a table if it does not exist with a user, with an ID, which is a serial. So how to increment the primary key. It's an ID, is a number. A name, varchar, string. Email, varchar. And they can't be null. Otherwise, this will throw an error. Nice. Another one, another functionality. No, Another utility function is this one, this getID. When we visit, for example, /API, /Rust, /users4, we want the user number 4. If we do a delete on /API, /Rust, /users4, we want to delete the user number 4. This function does exactly this. So it parses the URL. I'm not going to details, but basically we have a request split with a slash. I coded this during a live stream like 6 months ago. So now I use this. And the 4 is that it will be the fourth element in this parsing. And then we can have one more utility function, which is this one, to deserialize a user from a request body without an ID. So this is basically to get the information about a user. And you can see here, Rust is very powerful. So we get this user with request body. We will use this function in other functions. And we have as a result, check it out, this user. So we split this and we use Serde underscore JSON here. We're not parsing it manually. I tried this on live stream, never tried this. And you receive this user, okay? Because Rust doesn't have the concept of JSON by default. It's super hard to do this. Okay, nice. Now we need to handle this request. So first of all, we need the routers and then the controllers. So for routers, you can have this handle requests here, and we have this function. This function is a bit long. I don't trust GitHub Copilot. I want to use my function here, but I don't want to type it manually, otherwise this will take 20 minutes. But I'll explain, no worries. I'm explaining line by line. This is a style. You might like it or not. So we have this handle client. We have a max buffer because we don't want a URL to be infinite. At some point we say, no, this is enough, because in a URL people might type everything, even write whole programs. We want to have a limit in the buffer. And then we define a request object. Maybe you understand here what's going on, because based on the path here, we are doing different things. Let me know if you understand what's going on here. You see, post/API Rust users, get/API Rust users, get/API Rust users, but those two are different, because this is to get a single and this is to get them all, okay? We have also this one to update the users, the put one, and the delete one. Otherwise, we return a 404, so not found, okay? And then we are basically getting ready to give a response. This is to give a response. Nice. Now we need the controllers. We need to define what will happen when we will handle this request. We're basically writing these controllers here. You see here. So we'll start with handle post request, which is this one. And I'll explain again what's going on. No worries. So this is, I think, the longest one. Let's put it here. So to handle the post request, so we need to make a post request here, and we can get the body with name and email, and then we create the user. I want to show you exactly what happens here. Check this, insert into user's name, email. You see, we are not defining the ID. It's returning the ID because this is a serial. This is auto-incremented, okay? And then we return the ID. So basically, if we create a user, I don't know, Francesco mail, then as a return, we have, okay, Francesco is the ID 1, and then we do something with this number 1. For example, we search for the users. So why are we doing this? Because we want to return the user with the ID. You will see this soon, in 5 minutes. If we create a user with name and email, we will have a user with a name and email and the ID assigned, okay? So we make this select, of course, we select from the database. I'm writing raw queries. This could also be constants, of course, but I like to read them here because this will be a very minimal web server. Okay, and we return an okay response in case the response is valid. Otherwise, of course, we return an error. So we say that, for example, if we didn't retrieve the user, this is not gonna happen. I think never, because this will happen if we created the user. But I don't know, we might have a problem with the DB or so on. So this is to handle a post request. So to create a user. Now, to get a single user, we'll have another function, which is handle get request. So let me paste it here and let me explain. So we have this handle get request to get a single user, and then we get the ID from the URL. You see, we use this function, this get ID one, which is here. Basically, we are parsing the URL. We connect to the DB. And then we do this, select star from users with the ID, and then we return the user with the ID, the name and email. Here we return the user that has the same ID that we asked. If we can find the ID, let's say that you look for a user number 100 and there is no 100 user, we return a user not found. If we have an error, generic error, instead we return an error. So this is not an error. This is just something that the user was not found. Maybe you typed, you were looking for the wrong user. Here there is an error in the request, which is another concept, I would say. Now, to handle all the requests, you can have this one, handle get all requests. This is probably the easiest one because basically we don't need any ID. You can just select all the users. We put them inside a vector here. This is a vector. We store all the users in this vector with this select all for row in client query, and then we just return all the users. This will be automatic even on the UI. This is usually the first one I test because it doesn't have any parameter. Two more, and then we are done with the backend. Handle put request. Almost done. Okay, so to handle the put request, so to handle this update, we handle this put request with this method. We need to provide an ID because when we want to update a user, we need to provide the ID. Update the user number 3. We need to provide this in input, and to do this, we will get this from the URL, so not in the body. And then after this, we execute this query, update the users and set a new name, a new email, where the ID is this one provided. And these are reversed, but it's okay. Username, user email, and ID. After this, in this case, we don't return the updated user, but we just return a response. This might also be improved. The project will be open source, so feel free to make a PR in case you want to change this functionality. We need only one more function, which is to handle a delete request. To be honest, a delete is usually very easy. It's very similar to the get one request. And we have this, we have the ID here to get the ID. Get ID basically is to get this ID from the URL. We parse it, of course. We connect to the DB, and then we do something tricky, but I'll explain. We do a delete from users where ID is 3, for example. Let's say that we say we want to delete the user number 3, and then we store this inside a variable. Why? Because from a database perspective, usually it returns how many rows has been affected, how many rows we have deleted with this delete command. Now, if the rows affected are 0, this logically means that it deleted nothing. Why? Because let's say that we don't have a user number 3 and we try to delete the user number 3 from the database. The database fails silently. It's not an error. It's just that has no effect. And so, but in this case, logically, we say the user was not found. So you tried to delete a user that didn't exist. Otherwise, it just deletes the user and it returns a user deleted, just the string. Okay, no, so we wrote all the backend now. And now we need, if I didn't make any mistake, otherwise I think I have to type it again, I think that now we can try to Dockerize this Rust application. This is probably my favorite part in the whole stack. I want to take a 2 minutes break and then we will see. Nice. Wow, 30 people. Yes, I'm Italian. Sorry for the accent. Okay, fine. Let me read. Okay. Rust and backend. You can use Rust even for different things, not just for backend. The controller are functions that you use to handle a request in this case. So for example, I want to create a new user. That's a classic example. You go here, this one, for example, and this is a procedure to create a new user. So there are some parameters here, and at the end of this procedure, you have a new user in the database. So this is, for example, one of the controllers. remix. It's okay. Man, I check your channel, hold live videos, 12 hours of learning Web3 and Rust. You're truly inspiring, thank you. You know, many of these things I did them live. It's just me doing a lot of stuff, and yeah. Okay. Really appreciated that we have people here. Yeah, I think we can keep going. So now let's try to Dockerize this application. So how can we Dockerize an application? We did this multiple times. There is a video about Dockerfile in general. In this case, I will go faster, of course, because now this channel is plenty of Docker videos, I swear. So we can create, so first of all, let's step inside the backend folder. Sometimes I forget. So in the backend folder here, I want to create two files. One is, I'll create them with the touch command. So touch.dockerignore, .dockerignore, and then rust.dockerfile. So I call the Dockerfile not Dockerfile, but Rust Dockerfile, because when I have multiple Docker files in my project, I call them not Dockerfile. We could use Dockerfile just specifying the path, but that will be very messy, I would say. So this, you see at the top now we have a .dockerignore and rust.dockerfile. I want the I think I like this one. Rust, usually you have a Docker file called capital D Dockerfile. In this case, I have rust.dockerfile, not capital. I prefer to have this syntax here. And in the .dockerignore, we can have this star target, because usually Rust creates a target folder. It's similar to Java, that creates a target folder when there is like the output. In this case, we will not build this locally, but still the Dockerignore is a good practice. For example, if you are a Rust developer and you want to build it on your machine. In my case, I want to build it just using Docker. So let's go on the rust.dockerfile. In this file, we'll type line by line. So as I promised, we'll have two important things here: multi-stage builds and arg, something that you don't see usually. So if you're around, just stick now, because you might learn something new about Docker. So we will have a build stage for this one, and we can define a from. I'll go faster here, not explain exactly what is going on. 1.69 is the version that I used, and then we call it dash buster as builder. Then we specify a work dir. Is basically the directory that we use in the container. And then something interesting, arg. What is arg? If you know what is arg, don't cheat, you can type it in the chat. Arg is to accept something at build time. So while I'm building something, I'll have an environment variable, and we'll call it database URL. Why? Because when we build, we already want the environment variable. And then we can define also this environment variable. And this is, again, super tricky. We call this database URL with equal $database URL. So basically, we want to use as environment variable the database URL string that will be defined where? In the Docker compose file. Now, after this, we'll just copy everything inside everything. This is something that you don't see usually in default Docker tutorials. Then run. Many things are coming. Then run cargo build. You see, we are doing the build inside the when we build the Docker image, which has advantages and disadvantages. But for example, to do this, you don't even need Rust on your machine. And then from Debian, which is of course a Linux distribution, Buster Slim. Oh my god. Debian Buster Slim. Okay, now it's okay. So we have basically, this is the production stage. Production stage. So we have two stages here. We are having a multi-stage build. We can have the work dir, which can be user local bin, for example, and then we copy from what? From the other stage. So we copy so basically we copy the result of this build stage, and we copy whatever is from this build stage here. So app target. So we are copying this inside the file system of the image. After this, we do something super simple. We do cmd backend. Okay? So this is a multi-stage build, and now we're going to try to do Docker compose build. Let's see. I see that there are many people here, so this is interesting. Probably we'll have, now we can have a, first of all, let's try to do Docker compose build. Let's see. And now I'll check the chat. Docker compose build. I don't know if this will work at the first time. Let me check. First of all, thank you. I see Danny here. Hi. Thank you so much. Mine. Okay, sound glitching, I hope. So this app that I'm currently building, is it okay now? Okay, I hope this was okay. Of course, okay. So I'm building a full stack application. Hey bro, good shit, keep up. Just chilling in chat, 50 watches. It's a lot. I think that, this channel will be focused on, like, if we have more viewers for Rust, we'll do more Rust stuff. It's very simple. Is Docker necessary if I use Linux? Just because my dev system is Linux and server is Linux as well. Sound glitch. Let me check. What's going on? Test. One moment. Let me check. Maybe we broke the YouTube. Let's see. Let me check. Maybe it should be a bit further. Okay. Is it okay now? Okay. Okay, let's see. How is the sound now? Let me check. Properties. How is the sound now? It's good. Okay. Nice. Okay. That's good. Okay. So, did it work? No, I didn't do the command. So now let's build this one. I didn't check that it was doing something. So Docker compose build. It didn't work because I forgot. Okay, now let's add the service on the Docker compose file. So we need to add this new service. So in the services here, we define a service. The services are basically containers, Rust app, and we have a container name, okay, container name, Rust app, and then we have an image. We'll call it Francesco XX, which is my GitHub, my Docker Hub account, Rust app. We'll not push this on Docker Hub. And then something that usually you don't see. Build. Usually we do just build dot, because we want to build in the same folder. Here we do build in the context of the backend folder. Basically we need to tell the path where the Docker file is. In this case we have the Docker file, which is not called Docker file, it's called rust.dockerfile. I hope this is clear. And then we need to specify where is this file. So in this file is check here the tree. We have compose YAML, and then inside the backend folder we have a rust.docker file. You can see it here. And then something interesting, args. We can define some args at build time. When I want to build something at, when I want an environment variable at build time, I use this one, args database URL. So because we will use, the tricky part is this one. You can. The tricky part is this one. This, cargo build. When you do a cargo build, you need the environment variable of the database to make the connection in the build of Rust. So it's very important. You can do this in different ways, of course, but this is one way. It's also a good reason to explain these args. Something a bit unusual, I would say. And the port is 8080. We can't change the port in this project because I hard-coded it. Probably I should do another environment variable, but it's okay. Okay, nice. So now let's try to do Docker Compose build. So Docker Compose build. And in the meanwhile, I can check the chat and relax a bit. Okay, why are you using Rust? The goal of this whole channel is to show different full stack applications using different languages and different technologies. So last week I used Node.js, this week I used Rust. Spoiler, next week I'll use probably Go or Python. I'll make a poll and you will decide what you want to see next. Usually I have this community-driven approach. I ask what you want to see, you vote, execute. Very, very simple. I see many people here. Thank you so much for the likes. So if the build works, I'll gift away 1 membership. If we can reach 100 likes, mind-blowing. People love Rust. Interesting. Let's see. So if this build, succeeds, I'll gift a membership because usually this is not something that happens. Also, since I want to say something, since I'm not using the cache of Rust, the build is very slow. I want to improve this process, probably not in this video. So this takes like a couple of minutes every time because I'm basically doing everything from scratch again. So if it's in one go, it will be nice. So let's see if we reach 69 likes. Nice. I really appreciate it, man. Okay, amazing. We crossed the 69 likes, but still worth. So I want to explain because you came at the right moment. So basically, I'm recording a video. I am recording a video of me creating a full stack application. This will be an edited video next week, but I want to do this high quality during a live stream. I know, I'm a bit crazy, but that's it. I mean, what are you building with Rust? I'm building a web server in Rust without using any framework. So it's a single file. It's a single 200 lines file. This took me weeks to create. It took me a lot. And I'm not a Rust developer, of course. I'm more focused on the DevOps part, but you feel free to use it. This might become an open source project. So if you are a Rust developer and you want to improve it, feel free to do it. I'm not specialized in writing Rust code. I'm specialized in writing Docker files. So if you see something here that is weird, and you're a Rust developer, you say, hey, Francesco, you can make a PR, you can make an issue. All the projects I do are always on GitHub. You can criticize them all. You can say that this sucks, whatever you want, because I'm not focused on this. I do something that works, usually, but I don't have a video where I try GraphQL, but I had, no, we had an error here, but I invited a GraphQL expert. So let me try to find it. Cargo at GraphQL. No, I'm not doing GraphQL now. Let me try to fix it now and see. We have a small mistake on line 24. Let's see. Main. Keyword const, not found. Let's see. I want to change this. By the way, all the code will be available on GitHub, so no worries, of course. And so source. Now it's getting hard. Backend, source, main. Let's see. The thing is that the cargo, of course I did it on purpose, because the cargo, the cargo compiler is super picky, I would say. So let me see. Okay, I just need to add a semicolon here. Okay. So let's add a semicolon on line 24, my bad, and let's try to build this again. Of course, this was just an example, so you can check how powerful the Rust compiler is. Thank you so much. This, of course, this was just a mistake on purpose, because I'm a live stream genius, so to engage people. No, you can leave the chat, Pietro, no worries. So this was a mistake, intentional, so you can see and fix it. So I also got 2 additional comments. I don't care. It's okay. It doesn't have to be. I want to prove that it doesn't. A tutorial doesn't have to be perfect. What I do is that I record this video live. Then on the edited part, I'll just make a fade, and you say here we need to change this, and then I build again. So the people who will watch later will see this in a better way. But also a live stream, it's always fun. So anyway, the live is very interesting. Thank you, Pietro. I see people love Rust. You like Rust. Could you make a video demonstrating the process of deploying a Next.js or other application VS using GitHub Actions? It's interesting, Max. What is your GitHub? All the links are here. You can find it. By the way, it's Francesco XX. It's nothing to do with something on the adult industry. Is that I didn't want to say my surname back then. Now everybody knows. I never thought that this username would have made it on YouTube, to be honest. And the build was successful. Cool. Okay, build done. Now it's time to test this. So let's run the container based on the image. So we do docker compose, no, one moment here. So we do docker compose. So we are running the container based on the Rust image. Docker compose up, -d stands for detached, and then Rust up. Let's see if it works. Does it work? It works. Okay. Now I want to do something. I want to go back here. You remember before I was checking what is inside this database. Now let's try to do this again. Let's try to step into the Postgres container again. And let's try to do this /dt. Bam. Now we have the users. So how was this possible? I'll explain you here. I'll tell you where the magic happened. Here, in the code, basically it started the server. In the main function here, you remember we have this set database function here. I can't follow because I don't have a Rust extension, but no, it's here. Here, we basically called this function. If you know SQL commands, you probably know what happened here. So we created the table directly here. It's a very raw method, but I mean, it works. It's one way. Sometimes I use ORMs, sometimes I use SQL commands, I use everything, all the possible technologies. It's just to showcase another way to do it. Now, I want to test these APIs. How can you test these APIs? I already know that someone will complain because I'm using Postman, so just drop in the chat that I should not use Postman, come on. And I don't care, I just want to test the APIs. Let's test these APIs with Postman. I want to see how many people complains about Postman. Nobody yet. So let's try to make a GET request on localhost 8080 id/API/Rust/users. Let's see. And you see we have an empty array. This is very important. It's a very good sign. This means that it's returning an empty array. It's cool. Now let's try to create some users. Let's try to create a user with some names that I see in the chat. So you will be on this channel forever. Let's see. I get some names here. We have Sam, and the name is sam@mail. Is a post request on localhost 8080/API/Rust/users. You see, we get back Sam email, but also an ID. I told you that to create a user, we don't specify the ID. Like when we sign up for a course, a marathon or university, we don't decide our ID. Someone assigns this ID. Let's try Biraj. I want to create two. Biraj, and then here Biraj mail. Okay, let's create, I think 2 users is enough. You see, Biraj is ID number 2. I want also Emmanuel. We are basically, but this is super cool. It's a web server in Rust. Emmanuel mail. Okay, let's post it. We see we have ID 1, 2, and 3. I want to show you that here, if we go here and we use and we go localhost 8080/API/Rust/users, small, but we have the 3 users here. If we go here and now we try to do select star from users, semicolon, we have the 3 users. Here we are using directly the psql commands. Now I want to test the 2 more functionalities and then we move to the cool part, the front end. Or is the last part cooler? Okay, let's change Emmanuel. So let's rename this. For example, instead of Emmanuel, I can name this like the video. I'm giving subliminal messages, and the email is subscribe@email. I want to change the user number 3, sending also subliminal messages in the chat. Send. User updated. If now I go to get, for example, the single user number 3, we don't need this, we get literally like the video and subscribe. I should do this more probably. And let's delete a user. Let's delete the user number 2. You see, I make a delete request at localhost 8080/API/Rust/users/2. Delete request, user deleted. And now if I go and get all the users here, I have the user with ID 1, which was Sam that we didn't touch, and the user with ID 3, which is like the video and subscribe, please. No, there is not please, it's email, okay? We will not use Axum, the backend is done. I did a backend in Rust without any framework. I think I almost never saw this on the internet, but now we have it. Cool. Nice. Now I think it's time to do the backend, the front end. Okay, now it's time to do the backend. So how can we create the backend? For the backend, we will use Next.js. Here let's go on the root level, so full stack -rust -live, and we do the usual command that we use. Not really the usual, almost the usual, which is npx create next app at latest. So we will use next 14 in this video. With this option, --no -git. Why? Because we already have a Git repository at the root level. We don't want Next.js to have another Git repository inside the Git repository. This will never work, always give problems. So we create this next app. Did you know that you can create a next app without Git? There is this option. as a project name, we'll call it frontend. TypeScript. Yes, TypeScript. ESLint, yes. Tailwind CSS, yes. SRC directory, yes. App router, still not, but probably in the future I'll make one dedicated video, just because I'm sure that it works in this way. I think it will work. And now it started to create this Next.js application. No Git, yes Docker. We have a Git repository. We are not... it's an option, because if you're creating a Next.js app inside somewhere where we already have a Git repository, we don't want the Git repository again, of course. This is one way to do this. You can also, for example, having multiple repositories. In this case, I have only one repository with a single Docker Compose file, and then 2 services. It's an example to showcase 2 different services. That's the thing. Now, we step inside the front-end directory. You can see here at the top right the front-end one, and I want to install only one dependency, which is Axios. Axios is a way to make HTTP requests, because we want to make HTTP requests from the front end to a backend. Some people told, hey, why are you using this? You can just use API in Next.js. Yes, this was last week. Now we are using Next.js with Rust, so today it makes sense. As you can see, I'm doing consistent videos that they all make sense. Nice. Up router next time. Okay, now I want to just try if this does work. npm run dev. By the way, we are not using Docker for a while. So this does mean that we will just have we will do everything without Docker. And at the end, we'll also Dockerize this application. Let's go on localhost 3000. Okay, and we see that we have this Next.js application. So Next.js application, of course, we still need to start, but we have this. Okay, nice. Okay, can you see it? No. Ah, okay, sorry. Like this. One moment. Okay. Okay, nice. So let's start creating this Next.js application. For now, I leave this on the side. Let's see if we can build it like this here. So I want to remove some styling that might give some problem. So in the src styles global.css file, I want to remove this, because otherwise I might have white text on a white label. It might be a problem. If you are a CSS master, probably you are for sure better than me. So now I want to create, this is important, I want to create 2 components. So at the src level, I want to create a component to show the single items, what I usually call card, and then a component that has these multiple cards. Let's do this in practice because it's easier than explaining this just in theory. So we create this folder called components. Inside this we create a file called card component.tsx. Bam, and we have this card component. So let's create this one. For now, this will not affect our UI, but I'll leave it like this. So we need to import React here, and then we need an interface. For example, we can use this. Now, do you recognize here that we have an ID as a number, a name as a string, an email as a string? We are consistent with the model that we used in the backend, of course. And now here we can have this const card component, and we can let's try to return just this, something a bit ugly, and then we export this. So this is the card component.tsx file. What is this equal? Go away. Okay, now I want to create another file here called user interface.tsx. This code is very reusable. If you want to use it for your project, it's very usable. You are creating an interface that contains a card. You can have multiple of these interfaces. It's super cool. I'll show you maybe something crazy at the end. So let's have some imports in this user interface.tsx file. So we have these three imports, React, Axios, and card component. We have a similar interface called user. I think user is okay. Okay. And then we can have here I want something super customizable, because this is a project, this is a live stream which is part of a bigger project. You are seeing like an episode of a trilogy, of something bigger. So this will make sense next week or in 2-3 weeks. So I'm creating something. It's like if you have only one element and you already create an array with a single element, because you will see, we will have something here. So let's have this backend string. We'll have Rust as a backend. It's a concept of the backend. And then we can create this user interface. So const user interface here. Okay. I'm trying to avoid the typos because I can't even write a tweet, let's say Next.js backend, but I'm hoping that at least this is correct. So we have this const user interface, and now here what can we do? We can have some API URL, and I want to show you here. So inside here we have this. So const API URL. We will use an environment variable, or we use just this localhost 8080. Okay, and then I want to use something for having some fields and input fields to create new users and update new users. This will be more clear soon. I want to copy them one by one. It's easier to understand. So this is when to set a single user, which is super useful. Then we have another one with set state when we want to create a new user. It's like create this with this name and this email. And then another one to update the user. We don't need one for the delete. You will see why. You see that when we update a user, we also provide an ID. Nice. Now, I want to do again something that is to customize this project. So in this case, we will have this. So a style, because Rust is orange. So we'll have some orangish UI. You see, I'm getting better at UI. I want to use this color that it's appropriate for Rust. And then I also want another one, which is for the button of this UI. So the buttons in the this Rust user interface, they will be orange. I also don't want not having a value here to break my application. So as a backup, I have something like this. All the code will be available, by the way. You don't have to, you can check it just like this now. And so if we don't have any color as a backend, we'll have some gray stuff. Okay, nice. Now let's start doing some cool stuff. I don't want to create the whole front end and just type, but I want to try to build step by step. Let's see if I can do it, of course. So I want to create only the function that fetches the users. It's like the get all from Postman, or when we use a browser. So we have this function, let me make this here, fetch users. So we use effect. We fetch some data using an Axios get request. This should be clear if you use the Axios once. I should make an Axios video sometimes. So we fetch on some URL here, /API/ you see, here we'll have /API/Rust. So at some point we will pass the name Rust and this will work. Spoiler, I'll have this with multiple backends in the future. I want to set the users in reverse mode. I love this from Next.js because when I create a new user, I want them to be on top. Otherwise, it's very annoying that I create a user and then I have to scroll. So they are created in reverse way. And then if we catch an error, we fetch the error. Okay, so this, for now, this is way more than enough. We can skip the other functions for now, because I want to see something on the screen. Once we'll start having something on the screen, things, I promise, they will start to make sense. So after this, we say other functions, okay. And then here we can make a return function, of course. And here we can do different things. I want to do something here and having this. I want to have just this. To return this, no, wait, okay, here. So I'll just show you here. We have this div for the user interface, some color. You will see this soon, I hope. We add some Tailwind CSS styling. Okay, I'm not going to the details. Sometimes I still have to check the documentation for Tailwind. I'm not a Tailwind master, but I mean, P4 it's padding, MY it's probably something with margin on Y, so it should be on top. I don't know. I don't know, but it's M is margin, and then rounded, and I want a cool shadow. So that's the thing. Otherwise, you would have a plain HTML without even CSS. So take this as an improvement, I would say. And okay, and now I want to first of all I want to close this one. Let me see, where are we? I want to display the users, so I want first of all to have here a div that closed, so at least the error should go away. It should. At least it should. It went away. So we have this, so we can return only one div, and here I want to display the users, so display users. Probably GitHub Copilot will try to be smart here. Okay, I don't trust GitHub Copilot, so I'm gonna take what I have here, and of course I'll explain, no worries. So this is to display the users. So let me check here. So we have this div. Soon this will probably be available on the screen, but let's check this together. So we map the users. We cycle through this card component to show all the users, and we have an error here because we don't have a delete user function. So for now, I'm gonna uncomment these 3 lines like a real developer will do. If you have a problem, you just comment the error. Okay, and at the end of this, I also want to export this default. I always forget to export this thing. Okay. Nice. So now we can try to now we can have this user interface where in the index.tsx file. So let's remove this default thing of Next.js, and we will replace this with something very short and concise. So our index.tsx file will be very clean. We'll have as dependencies, we have React and user interface. Of course, it's complaining because we have nothing here now. We can have this const home function, and then we can return something, and then we can, of course, export. I always forget to export stuff. Export default home. Let's see if we have something here. This is something. This is something. You see here on the right. So for me, this is a goal. Like as a DevOps developer, this is looks nice. Okay, let's try to make it a bit better. Okay, so so first of all, let me style this a bit better. So let's remove this. I want to replace this. Let's remove this and let's try something a bit more evolved, I would say. So this is better. Of course, I'm using Tailwind CSS stuff, so flex, justify center, item starts, I put some margin, and then you see I have this user interface backend Rust. So I have this thing, okay? This looks super cool to me. It's a lot. Now, I want to change the style here a bit. So what I can do now is I want to go back on the card component file, because you remember that we did something very basic here. Let's try to replace this with something that is a bit better. Of course, I'll not type this, it's too much. But let's try to analyze. It's basically a bunch of Tailwind CSS classes, okay? So, check this out. We have this element, and we have the ID, the name, and the email. I hope you can see it here, okay? And this looks better. I will say that this looks better. So we updated, let's say, this styling here. This is for the card component. The card component is this one, okay? With an ID, a name, and an email. ID, name, and email, with some cool styling. Now, in the user interface, we have this. The only thing that it's annoying me is this thing, Rust logo, because basically we should download a Rust logo. So I already got that. So we will put a Rust logo here. To do this, we can do this in multiple ways. But I want to show you. So let's reveal this in the Explorer. Probably it could be done in a better way. No, I don't need this. I need the download folder. And then I'll just put this, where is it? Rust logo. Where is the Rust logo? It's not here. Let me check it. Okay. Moment. Where is the Rust logo? Because it's an SVG. Wait. I'll take it from the other project because I know that this does work, but now I can see it. So, C workspace, full stack app. It's basically a transparent Rust logo. Full stack Rust 5 front end public. Okay, so we have this Rust logo. Okay. You can download this from everywhere. I put this in the, I can't, right, reveal in Explorer. So I open this folder, which is the folder of the project, and inside this, I copy this one, okay? I could do this with doing Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, but it would have been hard to see. So now here, you see that we also have this Rust logo, and if I refresh, I see the cool Rust logo here. I don't even know if I can show this logo, but when I'm gonna see it, I'm gonna turn down this video. So okay, so we have now this. I want to do some updates, and then we are almost at the end of the live stream, by the way. Okay, let's see. Where were we? That's it. Let's go back here. I think I'll check the chat one moment. If somebody's still here. It's okay. Hey Harsh, how's it going? Up router. Yes, start learning Next.js. Okay, nice. So nice. Now let's finish this front end. So we have this user interface. So let's add some functionalities on this project. Okay. So we are in the user interface.tsx file, which of course is the file that has, let's say, all the logic of the Rust backend. So here, okay. What happened here? 1 second. Let me see. Okay, a moment. Front end. So the index.tsx file is done. The card component is done. The only one which is not done yet is the user interface file. So we have the get user. Now I want to add the logic to create a user and then the logic to update the user and delete it. So here we can get this function. So below this fetch user, we can have this create user function. This is a function that will make the post request to create the user. So you see axios.post. With this, we do a post request with a name and email. As you can see here, we don't provide the ID. So this is the logic. And now we need to call this on what? On a form. Okay. So here below, I like to add the controllers of the UI on top. So I want to add this before this list of two files. So let's start this. So here we want to add the new users. We have this form, okay, nice. And can you see here we have this white thing. This will become the form to insert a user. Now I don't trust GitHub Copilot, of course, but I want to add two inputs and a button. So here you see here on the form we have this input. You see name here, and then we have a placeholder, a value, when changes, you see I can type here stuff. And then I need to add, of course, the input for the email. So here, below the input folder, we have the email folder, name and email. You see here, they're very similar, by the way. And now below this, we'll have a button that will create a user, okay? That's it, you see? Basically, we have this button with some cool styling to do this. Let's try if this does work, which is a bit crazy because we are not even using Docker now. So let's call this user. Let me get one name. Write your name in chat. Who can be? Let's see. It's getting longer. Okay, a moment. No, it's this. Okay. Nice. Let's see if I can find a name here. It's not updated. Okay. I'll add harsh. So harsh and email. You can have harsh@mail. I'm not sure if this is really your email. Okay, let's try. Let's add. And as you can see, we added a user called harsh here. As you can see here, there is nothing on the on the right. Take note of this, okay? Nice. I want to gift a membership because I'm very happy that today we have many people. So let's make it. The only problem is that when I do a membership, I need to edit this later. So let's gift one, and of course we'll do a big thing at the end. But I see people really love Rust. I should do more Rust stuff. Oh my god. Also doing this live. Embarrassing. A moment. So we need update function, delete function, Dockerization of the front end. Nguyen, you're gifted a membership. Yes, Nazim, I agree. Okay, so let's do the update user function here. Update user function. This probably will be a bit longer. No problem, I'll explain. This is, let's say, my style. At least I avoid making mistakes. I mean, I still can make a mistake. So this is the function to handle a user. We have this React form. We prevent the default behavior of the browser. And then we do a put request with Axios. And we go on /API/ this will be Rust. The backend name it will be Rust. Users /update user.id. And then we set the updated user on the form. And then we map the user because we want to update the user on the UI just right after we updated it. I want this to be like a responsive UI. Otherwise, we return an error. super easy. Let's go back on the form here. So add a new user, of course, let's see, GitHub Copilot is smart, GitHub Copilot is smart. So form to update the user, and we will do something very similar here. I want to always start with this, having this form. You should see, you see this one now. This one will be the update display. So we'll have input here with this. So we have the input of the user ID, input to create we need an input for the name. So we need an ID, name and email. You see ID, name and email. They are very similar, very, very similar. Probably GitHub Copilot can even guess it. Let's see. Probably. It was exactly what GitHub Copilot wanted. So you see, user ID, name, email. And then, of course, we need a very cool button. Here. Nice. It's also green. It's another color. Okay, let's try this. So let's say that I want to rename Sam, because Sam has never been touched so far. So I want to do something with Sam. So I provide the user ID. The user ID is not to modify the user ID. The user ID is to say, hey, I want to update the user number 1. And I want this, instead of Sam, calling it Francesco. I want to be very selfish here. Francesco, and then share it. Share it, I mean, like, share this live. Be always selfish when you do stuff. Update the user. And you see here at the bottom, Francesco has been, Sam has been updated to Francesco with this UI live. Fast check, if I do a get with Postman, I see consistent results. This is not just the UI of Next.js. We changed and fetched again the data in the database, of course. Now, no, we are almost done. We need a function to delete a user. I always keep the delete as last, first of all, because it makes sense, and second, because it's also kinda easy. So we want to delete a user, and this is the function. Very easy. We delete a user, we do a delete request with Axios, API, Rust, user ID. We filter the users after doing the delete. So basically, we also remove the delete from the UI. But this is, I mean, we can even comment this, and with a refresh button, this would happen again, because we deleted this from the DB. How can we do the delete? Do you remember that at the beginning I commented the 3 lines of code here? Because the delete, I want this to be on the element. It's a decision, but it's something. So let's uncomment this button on click. And you see here, we have now the delete button. Before it was showing an error because it didn't know what a delete user was. Now we added the delete user, now it makes sense. But is this just UI? Or does it just work? I want to create a new user. Let's call it like test4 and email test4 mail. Add a user, you see. I want to double check with Postman. We see you can make a send request. You see test4 is here with ID 5. And then I click the delete. And then I click here the delete button. So it disappeared from the UI, okay. But is that just a React thing? If I make an API request, it's no more there. We deleted this from the DB. We did everything live with this npm run dev, like up and running this. I always like this part. Okay, nice. Just one moment. I can add something, it's not necessary, but on top here, I want to add a couple of lines here. On the UI, so here when we have all this stuff, this div, above or below the image, below the image, I want to add the name of the backend, okay? Just a small change. Okay, like this. Okay. You see? So now we have also this Rust backend, okay? It's just an extra line. But the interesting part is this, that this is not just a string hello world. This is a class which has the backend name, so for our case, it's Rust, with two uppercase. So when we'll create a JavaScript backend, we'll create something similar and we'll pass another string. I'll show you that here in the index.tsx. This is very important. We have this user interface with, as a backend name, we have Rust, and we put Rust everywhere, even in the API, in the name, even the color, you see. This color has been styled because of this Rust from here. Okay, nice, we are done. I think we miss only one part, but this is a very cool part. So this part is the Dockerization on the Next.js application, and now everyone will go crazy. Why, Francesco? Are you Dockerizing a Next.js application? You should use Vercel. No, you should do this correct. No, it's a way to do this on my machine. You can always deploy this, also deploy this on Vercel. Nothing wrong with that, a huge fan of Vercel. Nice. So let's deploy this application. No, let's Dockerize this Next.js application. To do this, we need to do something. We go on the next.config.js file, and we need to define as an output standalone. This is if I want to deploy Next.js with anything which is not Vercel. So I want, like, leave me alone. Just give me the code, okay? And then we can Dockerize this application. So we create a .dockerignore, and then a next.dockerfile. Nice. I'm happy. Dockerize next. Yes. I'm too funny. So let's create these two files. We are in the front end folder. And now I want to, first of all, write the Dockerignore. And now I'll show you something that not many people know. Do you know that to Dockerize a next, so let's go on the .dockerignore and put */node modus. Now, how can you Dockerize a Next.js application? I'll show you. Next.js official Dockerfile. So Next.js gave us a default Dockerfile to use in case we want to deploy this with Docker. I just need to find it. So there is this example, Vercel, I'm on GitHub, Vercel/Next.js, so I'm doing nothing, let's say, it's not witchcraft, Vercel Next.js, Dockerfile. Bam, what is this? This is a Dockerfile provided by Next.js. Let's steal it. Control C. I go on my project, on the Dockerfile, next.dockerfile. I call this file .dockerfile, Control V. Done. Whew. That was hard. I Dockerize the Next.js application in the way the Next.js team suggests, let's say. Probably they never suggest it because they not get money for it, but still, it's something. Of course, okay, the site is down. The last thing is, as a services, we need to add the next app service. So I'll be fast here. This is the next one. We need a container name, next app. Then we need an image. We can call it Francesco Next App. And then we can make a build in the front-end folder next.dockerfile. Ports 3000. And then we need an environment variable. We're almost done. The environment variable is this one. I don't want to risk to type this environment variable. Next public API, URL, HTTP localhost 8000. Depends on Rust up. Nice. Just need double colon. Nice. And now let's see if we can have the same service alive, up and running using Docker instead of npm run dev. Just to let you know here, we are not doing npm run dev, but we are doing a proper build here. This is a proper build, a yarn build with multi-stage build. I can explain one day line by line, but I already made it in one video, which is a Next.js Docker on this channel. We're done. cd. Let's go on at the root level. Let's do docker compose build that builds everything that has an image key in the docker compose file. So it will build because we have this image build here. Let's see. Will it work? Almost 2 hours. And then the last test will be to try to insert a user using the Dockerized Next.js application. That again, yes, it can also be deployed with Vercel. Let's see how many people told this. Docker is good. Who said Docker is good? It's cool. Where can I learn Docker containers? I published a 1-hour video, which is absolutely free, and you can watch it. Probably that's a good place to start. And also, of course, keep following what Francesco does, because maybe I'm not good with Tailwind SSS or other stuff, but for Docker, I feel it like it's my favorite stack, the favorite thing that I'm doing. Nice. It's taking a while, but it's because here I'm just basically doing everything from scratch again, so it's okay. After this, the first thing that I will do is to gift away some memberships, creating a GitHub repository, pushing the code so you can check it. If I have no problem. If you have any problem, if you want to suggest changes, just do it. It's I'm this for that. Like especially if you are Next.js developer, if you are Rust developer, my part is more on the Docker file or Docker understanding the concepts and explaining how all the things are glued together. But you can do basically your part, just contributing. That's it. Let's see. It's taking very long. Is it working? No? Yes? Yes? No? It's taking some time. I should make a video when you optimize this process. Optimize this process, but for now it's okay. Nice. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Oh. Okay. Done. And now I do docker compose up -d. I don't need to specify the service because this will spin up all the services. Done. Let's go here. Let's refresh. The application now is up and running with Docker on my machine. That's it. If I go here and I do exit, clear, I do docker ps-a, docker ps-a, I have this. I have 3 services here, and all of them are part of this big thing. Super cool. Super cool. Now let's try to see if this does work. Let's try to create a new user. So I never created a user called Docker for a reason, because now I want to create a user called Docker. So let's call it like next Rust Docker. No, oh my God. Next. You see, I made typos even I typed this stuff. And email, it can be, I don't know, next mail. Okay. Let's try to create this user. Okay. And I want to create another one because it was not clear. Let's say, call it like next to @mail, add the user. You see, we are creating users. If I go here on a database and I do select star from users, we see we have these users in the database. Next Rust Docker, next to, so we are inserting stuff using this UI in Next.js, calling API on a Rust backend, and putting this on the Postgres database. Bam, in one go. And let's see if I can update it. User ID 7. Let's call it well done. And email well done at mail. Update the user. Well done here. I want, let's use Postman here. Let's make a GET request. Of course, they are not reversed, but you can see here, well done.